I rented a cabin in the woods, but someone was already living there. Hey Reddit, I need to get this off my chest. I don't know if I'm going crazy, if I've been in danger this whole time, or if this is just some messed up coincidence. Last month, I booked an Airbnb. Simple enough, right? I'd been burnt out from work, so I decided to rent a quiet cabin in the mountains for a week. The listing looked perfect. Rustic but updated, big fireplace, lots of hiking trails nearby, no neighbors for miles. Solitude, fresh air, peace. At least that's what I thought. The first night, when I pulled up, the cabin looked exactly like the photos. A little two-story log house with green shutters tucked into the woods. I unlocked the door with the code the host sent me, and everything seemed fine. A little musty. But that's cabins for you. I unpacked, made dinner, and curled up with a book by the fire. Around 11 p.m., I started hearing creaks upstairs. Normal, right? Old house, wood settling, except it didn't sound random. It sounded like footsteps, slow, deliberate footsteps. I told myself I was imagining things, cranked up some music, and eventually went to bed. At 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of a door shutting upstairs. The journal. The next day, I did a sweep of the house. Nothing looked out of place, except for a drawer in the kitchen that was locked. Weird, but I figured maybe it held cleaning supplies. Later, while exploring the upstairs loft, I found something wedged under the bed, a leather-bound journal. The first page said, "Cabin log, do not erase, for safety." At first, I thought it was just some quirky guest book. But the entries weren't "we had a great time hiking" or "the hot tub was amazing." They were things like, "He came to the window again last night. Don't go outside after dark. If you hear the humming, hide in the bathroom." The last entry was dated 2 weeks ago. It just said, "He's inside now." The closet? That night, I barely slept. Every creak made my skin crawl. Around midnight, I went to refill my water bottle and noticed something odd. The hall closet door was slightly open. I hadn't opened it. Inside was a pile of clothes that definitely weren't mine. Flannel shirts, boots, a half-empty pack of cigarettes. On the floor was a Polaroid camera and a photo of me, taken from outside the cabin window, while I was reading by the fire. I left the cabin at dawn and drove into town, but now I can't shake the feeling that someone followed me. Should I go back and confront the host, call the cops, or just leave it and try to forget? Because the weirdest part? When I checked my phone later, the Airbnb listing was gone, like it never existed. Update 1. The sheriff didn't believe me. So a lot of people told me to call the cops. I did. Well, I tried. After I left the cabin that morning, I drove straight into town. Small place, only one diner, one gas station, and a sheriff's office that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. I walked in with the journal, the Polaroid, and my nerves shot to hell. The deputy at the desk looked at me like I'd just asked for Bigfoot's phone number. But he got the sheriff, a heavy-set guy with a mustache that belonged in a different century. I told him everything. The footsteps, the journal, the photo of me taken through the window. He didn't even blink, just leaned back and said, "Son, that cabin's been closed for years." The cabin's history. According to the sheriff, the cabin had been owned by an older couple who died about a decade ago. Their kids inherited it, but never rented it out. Too many bad memories. I pulled up the Airbnb app to show him the listing, but it was gone. Completely. No history, no message thread with the host, nothing. Like it had never existed. When I pushed, the sheriff got impatient. Said if I was trespassing, I could get in trouble. He suggested maybe I'd had a few too many and imagined things. But when I showed him the Polaroid, his face changed. Just for a second, like he recognized something. Then he stood up, handed it back, and said, "You should head home. Don't go back up there." And that was it. The diner encounter. I left the station angry, frustrated. Ended up at the diner, trying to figure out my next move. That's when this old waitress came over, refilled my coffee, and said quietly, "You stayed up at the Carter place, didn't you?" I nodded. She didn't ask for details, just whispered, "You saw him." When I pressed, she wouldn't say more. Just shook her head and walked away, muttering something under her breath that sounded like a prayer. That night, I checked into a cheap motel, figuring I'd crash, then drive home in the morning. But sleep didn't happen. Around 2 a.m., someone knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks. When I looked through the peephole, the hallway was empty. But on the floor, just outside my door, was another Polaroid. This one was of me, sitting in the diner earlier that day. Absolutely. Here are the next installments in the saga, written like a long no-sleep thread. We already have the original post in Update 1. Below are Updates 2 to 5 final, with escalating stakes and that signature Reddit cadence. Update 2. I went back to the cabin. The journal wasn't the only thing left behind. Everyone told me not to go back. I went back. I drove up in broad daylight, parked at the bottom of the drive, and hiked the last quarter mile so I could hear anyone else coming. The cabin looked smaller than I remembered, like it had been holding its breath the whole time I was gone. First thing, I photographed everything. Window latches, door frames, the lockbox, the path around the porch. No footprints except mine. But inside, the smell had changed, from old wood and ash to something like cold coffee and wet wool. Recent. I went straight for the locked kitchen drawer. Last time I'd figured cleaning supplies. This time I brought a tiny pry bar. It was stubborn, then it wasn't, and the handle popped with a splintering sound that ran up my arms. Inside, a tangle of lanyards, plastic sleeves, all empty. Beneath them, rubber bands, a broken digital watch, and a stack of index cards hole-punched and ring-bound like a field guide. On the first card, handwritten in block letters, Humming shish near. Bathroom here's good. Water on a better. Mirrors reused cover. The second card had a crude map of the cabin. X marks by the closet, the loft railing, and the bathroom vent. The last card, a list of dates, each with a number beside it. The numbers went up. A tally. Of what? Upstairs, under the loft bed, I found another journal, smaller than the leather one. The first page. If you're reading this, you heard him too. Don't go outside after dark. He won't come through running water. He hates his reflection. If you hear the humming in the walls, get low and breathe through a towel. There were entries like inventory. 2 cans beans, 1 flashlight, batteries weak. Rain on Tuesday. He stayed close. He took one of the Polaroids back. The handwriting changed halfway through, shaky, then suddenly neat again, like someone else had taken over. The neat hand wrote, "Don't answer knocks. He hates being ignored." That night, I planned to stay only long enough to test one thing: the bathroom. The journals both said it was safe. I didn't want to believe that kind of rule would work, but I also really wanted it to. Around dusk, the trees went black against a dying sky. I turned on the shower to a thin hiss and sat on the closed toilet with the door locked and the lights off. My plan was not a plan. It was an experiment a stupid person would run right before dying. The first humming started in the vent. It was low at first, like the sound a fridge makes in the next room. Then it slid up into a tune I knew but couldn't name, something you hum when you don't want to think, when you're working with your hands and the day is long. It came and went in breaths. He was on the other side of the bathroom wall or inside it. The doorknob twitched. Once, twice. A pause, like someone tilting their head at a closed box. Then 3 knocks, slow as a heartbeat. He stopped humming. I didn't breathe. Literally didn't. I counted my pulse in my eyes. After a full minute, the humming returned, right outside the door this time. And it wasn't random. It was matching my breaths. When I inhaled, it rose. When I exhaled, it fell. He was listening to me. The shower sputtered. The water pressure dropped and surged, and with it the humming receded, like the noise pushed him back. When I finally cracked the door, the hall was dark. On the floor just outside lay a single index card I hadn't left there. It said, "Don't look out the windows." I looked anyway. Across the yard at the tree line, something white hung from a low branch like a wind chime. When the breeze moved, I saw they were Polaroids, hung by loops of fishing line. They stirred and flashed and turned their white backs like fish. He'd been busy. I left at dawn. In the car, I kept thinking about the tally numbers going up. I still didn't know what he was counting. When I stopped at the gas station in town, I found a folded receipt tucked under my windshield wiper, trapped beneath the blade like a ticket. The receipt was blank, heat paper unused. On the back, written with the same neat hand as the second half of the journal. Your number's 27. Update 3. The locals knew him by another name. I went back to the diner. Same waitress, same coffee, same small-town radio murmuring about church bake sales and a rain front coming over the ridge. I slid into a corner booth with my notebooks, the journals, the index cards. When the waitress came, I didn't bother with small talk. "Me, what do you call him?" She didn't flinch. She set the coffee down, kept her hand on the mug a second too long. "Her. We don't call him, we call in sick." I told her about the receipts, the Polaroid chimes, the humming through the vent. She stared out the window at nothing, the way people do when they're borrowing time from a memory they don't like to touch. "Her. You rented that place from a listing that wasn't there. That's not a glitch. That's bait." She slid into my booth like we were old friends and talked low and fast. Years ago, a man people called Eli Carter had lived up on that ridge. The Carters were good people, quiet, private, off the grid, but Eli always made folks nervous. The humming, she said, had started when he was a kid. He'd hum in church until his mother would put a hand on his shoulder and he'd stop, only to start again in the parking lot, in the long, low way that says, "I'm still here." When Eli grew up, he worked odd jobs, fixing things, locks, vents, ductwork. Could listen to a wall and tell you where the bad wire was, she said. He was on maintenance crews for rentals, too. Knew the cabins like pockets. Then the old Carters died, and the place sat. People saw lights on some nights, none on others. Teenagers dared each other to go up and stole keepsakes, only to find them on their pillows the next morning. Me. So the sheriff knows. She barked a laugh that had no humor in it. Sheriff's brother was on maintenance with Eli. He knows where the old crawl spaces run. He knows why the bathroom's safe. Plumbing noise. Eli hates it. Can't stand what he can't hear past. I asked her about the tally. She looked at my hands like she expected them to tremble. "People," she said. "I think he counts how close he got." She told me to go home. Instead, I went to the hardware store. I bought duct tape, a tarp, a pack of trail cams you can monitor from your phone with a local hotspot, and a big, ugly pipe wrench. I bought a mirror, too, the stick-on kind meant for dorm rooms. I drove back up with the rain on my windshield and the taste of diner coffee turning sour in my mouth. Night felt like a trap. I put a camera at the tree line, one under the porch, one facing the loft. I taped the mirror to the inside of the bathroom door and ran the shower to a trickle. I lay on the bathroom floor with the pipe wrench across my chest and listened to the building inhale and exhale. At 1:13 a.m., the porch camera pinged. Motion detected. My phone showed white static. Then the frame stabilized on something hanging just out of sight. A hand, not touching the lens, covering it with a piece of clear plastic, like a raincoat for the camera. He knew what a trail cam was. Of course he did. The loft camera caught him next, just a sliver in the corner of the frame where the rail throws a shadow. A shoulder, bare, pale, with something looped around it that flashed square and white. A bandolier of Polaroids. The humming came soft, through the vent, through the walls, through me. It wasn't a lullaby anymore. It was my breath, my cadence. He had learned me. He came to the bathroom door and stopped. I could see his shadow under the gap. He didn't try the knob. He hummed, and the mirror on the door vibrated on its adhesive hooks like it wanted to leave. Then, "This is the part that still knots my muscles when I think about it," he whispered. He whispered my name. Not "hey" or "open up" or anything a prankster would say. He whispered it the way the sheriff had said it when he read it off my driver's license. The way the waitress had said it when she checked my card. Eli, if it was Eli, had been practicing me. He scraped something along the door, not claws, not a knife. Later, I would find the tool on the kitchen counter where he left it for me to see. A fork, one tine bent into a little hook. He'd used it to drag the index card back and forth beneath the door like a cat with a string, so I'd see it move. The card read, "Count better." He said my name once more, not like a question, not like a threat, but like he wanted to hear how it tasted in a mouth that wasn't his. Then the humming retreated, and the porch camera pinged again as the rain started up, heavy enough to drown the forest. At dawn, I opened the bathroom door and stepped on another Polaroid. My face reflected in the bathroom mirror he'd been staring at from the other side. In the reflection, there was a smudge over my left shoulder, a white square mid-swing, like a nodding pendulum. His bandolier had caught the light. Update 4. I found his camp. I wish I hadn't. He wants me to count. He wants me to learn. I followed the fishing line from the Polaroid chime like it was a breadcrumb trail. It ran from the branch to another, and then down along a deer path that old boots had pared into the shape of human insistence. I moved slow, marking trees with orange tape from the hardware store. The rain had knocked the forest flat and silent. Half a mile in, the path dropped into a gulch where the creek runs low even in spring. There, under a fallen pine, someone had quilted a roof out of tarps and woven branches. Tucked inside like organs were boxes, milk crates, ammo cans, plastic totes with broken lids. In one crate, routers and power bricks, old but clean, wires bundled and labeled. In another, phones, cheap burner models dusty with use. He'd kept them all. He'd kept us all. On a sheet of plywood leaned against the dirt wall were taped printouts, screenshots of rental listings, all for the same cabin, all with different host names, different angles, different color balances, like a storefront that changes outfits for the same mannequin. In the corner of one printout, barely visible, was the reflection of an arm holding the phone. No face, just an arm, bare, pale. On a nail driven into the tree above the shelter hung a row of lanyards with empty sleeves. Beneath them, a mason jar full of lockbox keys. If the sheriff had ever wanted to prove anything, all he had to do was come here. I think that was the point. He kept everything because he liked the idea that proof would never be enough, that people would still go missing and the world would call it wandering, drifting, a life change. Behind the camp, a hole cut into the dirt with cribbed lumber and hand-dug steps led to a root cellar. I went down because I am the kind of person who reads the warning on the fence and checks the latch anyway. The smell was cold and sweet and wrong. On the wall, tallies, carved in neat rows, 26 of them, then a space, then a new row. The last row had one mark. I ran my fingers over it because I had to, and when I pulled them back, they were black with char. He'd burnt the numbers into the wood to make them last. On a shelf, a stack of envelopes, sealed but unaddressed. Inside the first one, a single Polaroid of a front door I recognized as my apartment. Inside the second, a photo of the diner parking lot at night, empty except for my car. The third showed the sheriff's office. The fourth was the bathroom mirror at the cabin, a fog print of the word "stay" written backward in a finger that had touched my breath. I left the envelope stack alone after that. When I climbed back out into air that tasted like iron, my porch camera pinged, then the loft camera, then the porch again. The signal was weak, glitching, hopping. I ran. The cabin door was open when I got there. Inside, the lights were on. On the kitchen table, the fork lay next to a plate and a folded napkin like a place setting for one. In the chair, facing the door, was the leather journal, opened to its last page, where someone had smoothed the paper with damp hands until it wanted to tear. In neat handwriting, "You're counting wrong." I heard the humming in the vents and turned for the bathroom, but I didn't make it. The front door swung shut, and the lock snapped like a bone. The humming moved along the walls like a mouse in a cardboard maze. He traced me. I could feel him on the other side of the drywall like static. I went for the window. It was painted shut. I thought of the index card. Don't look out the windows. I didn't look. I threw the pipe wrench. The glass went in 100 bright teeth and the rain came in and the humming stopped. Not because I had scared him, but because I had given him a new sound to listen to, the rain falling inside. I climbed out, cut my palm, slipped in the mud, and ran until my chest was machine parts. When I reached the car, the passenger door hung open. I hadn't left it that way. On the seat, an envelope addressed in my neat handwriting. Inside, a Polaroid of me, asleep in the motel bed 2 nights ago, the trail cam manual open on my chest like a book that had read itself to me. I drove to the state highway with the dome light on and the radio up and the windows down because I needed noise. I needed a wall of it. I kept checking the rear view for a bare, pale shoulder with a bandolier of squares that blinked like fish. I called the state police from a mile marker. I told them everything. I used words like evidence and camp and root cellar and printouts because I wanted it to sound like a report, like something adults do when they are done being afraid. The dispatcher said someone would meet me at the diner in 20 minutes. They took 60. The sheriff got there in 15. Update 5. Final. The listing came back. For me. I won't draw this out. I know what you want to know. I know what I can't make you believe. The sheriff arrived at the diner out of breath with rain on his cheeks like sweat. He wanted me to take a ride, to show him. I said state police were on their way and I'd rather wait. He put a heavy hand on the back of the booth and looked at the waitress like he was asking for a favor without saying it. She poured coffee instead. The troopers came. We drove up in a convoy that made the forest look shy. We found the camp. We found the root cellar. We found the tally wall and the lanyards and the routers and the burner phones and the envelopes with photos of places we all recognized. We did not find Eli, or whoever he is. They taped the place off and swept the cabin and collected the trail cams and wrote statements in the carefully blank tone of people who have seen too much and plan to see more. A detective with hands like baseball mitts asked me why I had gone back, and I said the only honest thing I could. Because he wanted me to. They put me in a motel 2 towns over for a day or 2. The state detective told me to go home after that. New locks, he said. New number. He didn't tell me not to look out the windows. He didn't have to. I already knew better. That night, in the clean motel bed that smelled like someone else's shampoo, my phone buzzed. Not a call, not a text, A push notification from an app I didn't remember installing. River Rock Stays has a new property for you. I tapped it because I am the moth, and this is the porch light. The screen showed a listing. Quiet mountain cabin. Solitude guaranteed. Photos I recognized. Angles I recognized. Details only I would notice. The notch in the loft rail where I dropped the pipe wrench. The hairline crack in the bathroom tile that looks like a map of the county. The host name, El Lige River. The nightly rate, 0 A message bubble popped up. You left your journal. I turned the phone off. I took the battery out because that's what people do in movies, and I wanted to live in a world where movies teach you how to survive. I drove home the next morning with the sun big and cold and indifferent. I changed my locks. I taped over the peephole. I ran every faucet in the apartment at once and listened for a hum that matched my lungs. At 3 a.m., my doorbell rang. 3 knocks. Polite, careful. I did not answer. In the morning, there was an envelope under the door. Inside, a key with a tag that read Carter, and a Polaroid of my bathroom mirror fogged with the word stay written backward. There was no condensation on my mirror when I went to check. Just a faint arc where a finger had touched glass and waited for me to breathe. I moved the next week. I didn't tell the internet where. I didn't tell the diner lady goodbye. The state detective texted once to say the sheriff had retired, effective immediately. No reason given. A month later, my cousin sent a link with no context. A brand new short-term rental platform I'd never heard of. Fresh branding, clean UI, a logo like a river bent into a smile. One of the featured stays on the landing page was a photo of a bathroom mirror with a stick-on frame, fogged just enough to see the ghost of a fingerprint. The listing price was 0.0 Fars. I didn't click. That night, I lay in bed in my new place with the fan on high and every faucet dripping and the radio between stations. I counted the ticks of the baseboard heat. I did not count my breaths. And somewhere beyond my walls, in ducts or vents or the threaded space between apartments, a low humming started and swam toward me, rising when I didn't, falling when I wouldn't, patient as a craftsman, careful as a hand with a fork. If you ever rent a cabin, or anywhere, and you hear humming in the walls that matches the weight in your chest, turn on the water, cover the mirrors, don't look out the windows. And whatever you do, don't count for him. He's already counting you.